The views expressed are solely those of the speaker and not necessarily those of Paltalk.com, AVM Software, or its advertisers.
News Talk is online. News Talk Online is a production of Paltalk.com, the largest multimedia interactive program on the internet with more than 4 million unique users on demand on iTunes and on YouTube and on my site, GaryBaumgarten.com, where you are encouraged to post your comments whether you agree with yours truly or not. And thanks to our good friends at CRN Digital Talk Radio, we are syndicated across the United States into 12 million additional households. I am your host, Gary Baumgarten. Welcome to the show. You know, one of the things that happened when I left CNN and I came over here to Paltalk was that I realized that I had the freedom to cover a lot of stories that just were not getting properly covered by the mainstream media. In fact, when I was over there and I kept hearing people talk about the mainstream media, I got very defensive because I was very proud of the work that we did at CNN, and there is a lot of good work that's being done by the so-called mainstream or old school media that is still very, very good, and I'm not here just to blast them. But I will say that there are a lot of stories that fall between the cracks, and today's story is one of them, because today's story is one that should be of national interest, and unfortunately, as best as I can tell from my research of the case, it's getting some coverage, pretty minuscule, in Michigan where it's occurring, but nothing nationally or internationally. This broadcast, of course, is an international broadcast, so perhaps this is the first time that it's being reported outside the confines of the United States. I'm going to try to recap the case, and then our good guest, Buck Davis, attorney from Detroit, Michigan, who is taking up the cause of the Reverend Edward Pinkney, will correct me if I have some of this wrong, but here's my short synopsis of what happened. Reverend Edward Pinkney is a minister in Benton Harbor. Benton Harbor is on the west side of Michigan. It is a segregated, almost an apartheid community there, because on one side of the river is St. Joseph, which is almost entirely white and affluent, and on the other side of the river you have Benton Harbor, which is black and impoverished. And Reverend Pinkney has been in the forefront of attempting to improve conditions in Benton Harbor. He stepped on a lot of toes. He led a recall campaign against a local politician. As I understand it, the recall was successful, but there was some apparent skullduggery involving the handling of the ballots, and the County Election Commission refused to certify the election, and therefore the vote was thrown out. Anyway, somehow in all of this maze of intrigue and subterfuge and smoke and mirrors, Pinkney, who, from my understanding of it and my reading of it, was the good guy, got arrested for tampering with the ballots. There were 3 counts. That may not be the official charge, but that's a shorthanded version of this. Anyway, he ends up ultimately in the Berrian County jail, I think for a year. And while he's in the bowels of the sheriff's office there, he finds that the conditions there are horrific, and of course the majority of the inmates, unfortunately, turn out to be African American, and Reverend Pinkney, who is, as we now see, a community leader on the outside of the jail, decides to do some community organizing on the inside of the jail and starts writing letters and organizing campaigns to improve the conditions in the jail. Now, he's a minister, so of course he refers to what he knows best, the Bible, and he writes the chief judge of the Berrian County court to complain about the conditions in the Berrian County jail, and he admonishes the judge to do something, and he quotes in this letter Deuteronomy 28:14-22. Now, I'm not a preacher, but I'm going to read to you a small portion of that scripture. The Lord will put a curse on you, defeat and frustration in every enterprise you undertake, until you are speedily destroyed and perish for the evil you have done in forsaking me. The Lord will bring a pestilence upon you that will persist until he has exterminated you from the land you are entering to occupy. The Lord will strike you with wasting and fever, with scorching, fiery drought, with blight and searing wind that will plague you until you perish. Apparently, all this talk about perish got the judge to thinking that, oh my God, this guy is threatening me. With what? I don't know. With God's wrath, I guess. And he turns his wrath, the judge does, on Reverend Pinkney, and he throws him into Southern Michigan prison, which, when I was there, was considered the largest walled prison, not just in the United States, but in the world. That might not be the case anymore. But I can tell you, I covered Southern Michigan prison when I was a newspaper reporter in Jackson, Michigan. It's not a very pleasant place to be. I guess neither is the Berrian County jail. But the point is, how do you take a minister and throw him into the hoosegow for 3 years for quoting Scripture? In the United States of America, where I believe we have freedom of religion, or don't we? Buck Davis, defense attorney extraordinaire. Welcome to News Talk Online on Paltalk.com. Now, don't tell me I don't have Buck after all that. I don't hear him, Boaz.
Just a second, Gary. We may have lost him.
Oh, well, it was too good an introduction for Buck to handle. He's never had an introduction such as that, and he hung up the phone and he said, oh my God, I can't live up to this. Or maybe he didn't say, oh my God, because if he said, oh my God, he might get thrown in jail. Shall I tread water while we are awaiting the reconnect of Buck Davis?
Calling him back.
Okay, Boaz is calling him back. Anyways, as far as I'm concerned, we can talk about this case with or without him, but I want the expert here to explain to us how this is even possible in the United States of America. The good Reverend quotes the Bible